All right, here we go with the second series of the day. We've got Fnatic versus Weibo Gaming. TheShy has been carrying this team so far. They've been playing great. Who's been playing very nicely. Crisp has gotten some nice plays. Weiwei's been a little bit over angsty sometimes. We'll see whether or not that comes into line. Be interesting how he plays this Poppy. Going into the draft, we have Nico, Rumble, Callista biting the dust. We have Zaya, Jarvan, and Maokai. So 100% power picks being taken away. We lead off with Orianna. We get Renata, Poppy. So prioritizing any sort of lane that can go with Disengage. Disengage has been doing very, very well this tournament and outscaling. But we'll see it answered by Aphelios Cassante. I generally don't like this, especially when you have Aphelios into Renata. That is one of the stronger pairings, but you can go Renata plus Zeri and then get the outscaling that way. Cassante will have a nice ball partner here, which he can go for some all-outs. He can suck people in and just be a big tank with the big shield as well. Second half, we have Azir and Syndra being pinched, Ivern and Nautilus being pinched as well. We have Aatrox. People seem to be happy playing Aatrox into Cassante. Specifically, TheShy has been willing to do it, saying, yeah, it's kind of hell for 5 levels, but then I'll take over the game from there, especially once I get my Gourd Drinker. However, Oscarinin is on a different level. I think he'll be much more content to play this matchup. Then we also have Sejuani Milio. So you say, oh, you want to play with Peel? I will show you Disengage Champion. Milio ultimate completely nullifies Berserk by Renata, unless of course the Milio gets hit, so he needs to be kind of dancing that border. As far as team synergy, we've got the Sejuani diving in, holding down the front line. Will be very easy to play front to back with this comp. Aatrox needs to do a little bit more of diving, so largely this game's going to come down to the outplay potential of Weiwei on Poppy and TheShy on Aatrox, but much easier composition to play by Fnatic. Silas ultimate coming in, you stealing not the juiciest targets here. Silas, a lot of people feel comfortable playing Silas into Orianna. I would much prefer to see a champion like Akali here. You're not getting the full value out of really any of these spells by picking Silas. So I wonder how far down the pool who's willing to go, and whether or not they could have done something like a Victor, right? This composition's gonna have a problem where they are outranged significantly by especially the campfire, right? When the campfire is up, Aphelios Orianna are going to be very, very happy being on the edge of that. But without further ado, let's check out the game and actually see it in action. The winner of this series is moving on to the eliminations. The loser is going home. All right, we had a very long pause, so we're resuming 2 minutes into the game. Aatrox able to get the push in to Cassante. This must be a conscious choice. This is not something that has to happen. Normally when you have this pairing, the fact that you're going for a 6-wave plan, right? The idea that you're going to spend the next 3 minutes allowing this wave to crash, then rebound, crash it in this direction, then you'll be more aligned with Sejuani's second path around to the top lane. So that is the choice that you're making when you're giving a champion that doesn't need to win at level 1, when you're letting them fight for it, especially if they think that they're going to have to fight back some amount to make it happen. Then you can force them to push the wave. They try to harass you, they end up pushing the wave. We'll see whether or not Poppy's presence actually does anything to it, but the fact that Sejuani moved straight over camps to camps, she's going to have a tremendous lead on the pacing right now. She is zooming through the jungle. She's going to be finishing the red, and Poppy was not able to get anything off. The Silas aggression, this is something that you have to do with this pick, is play very aggressively and trade your HP and then your mana to try to heal yourself back up by going all in on the W with that Kingmaker. Instead, we have Sejuani jumping out to an enormous lead, takes the 5 camps to 3 lead, doesn't go for Krug, so is not fighting for level 4. Might mean that she's actually going to contest Poppy at the blue. Here we go, the remnants of what we said, 6-wave plan. This is wave 5. Oscarinian saying, yep, I can go for this play where we allow it to rebound. I push it back out. I crash. That combines with the junglers going to the bot side of the map, which means I get to proxy farm this wave. So I'm going to have a much better back, and I'm going to try to take over the matchup with 30 CS rather than doing it off of a 3-wave crash, for example. Sejuani right here, they're going to like this. Coming in second, they've got the pinch. Sejuani feels very strong using Q-Flash. Goes on to Crisp. Big shield onto everybody, but it's not enough. You get all that damage going on to the Renata. Humanoid also gets to move over. So a huge win for Fnatic. Not only that, but they won on the weak side as well. I absolutely love Oscarinian's plan right there. Right, you've got a winning matchup. You don't need to win it at level 1. Choosing to win it at level 3 into 4 with a rebound, taking the proxy, being able to get a recall for himself, and showing up back in the top lane. And you see that Aatrox doesn't really have a great situation. And even after he farms all of this wave, he's still going to be down in CS. You can see it happening right now on the mini map. Here's the play. Sejuani saying, hey, I can fight you for this. Hits level 4 off of that. That's very important. So even though Poppy's going to outsmite here to get the Scuttle Crab, it's not enough for level 4, right? Has skipped too many camps. That means Sejuani is very, very strong in this fight. Feeling very good. You see the green gun effect right there. Aphelios being able to contribute from super long range. And they chase out, get another flash for themselves as well. Cannot speak highly enough of this play by Oscarini. Now, also, on the rebound from that, Poppy comes back and starts clearing this way. So you have an extra 90 seconds into this matchup, plus you have time where you're actually strong side with Sejuani here. K'Sante is going to be feeling great. He's got Sheen and Control Ward and his biscuits. Means he can actually try to navigate this, turn it into a freeze for himself, and then Aatrox maybe gets checkmated. We'll see if he's able to get himself out of this spot. Obviously, this is the weakest part of the matchup for the Aatrox. Starting at about 6 is when he can start fighting back. 5 is like cutting it close. Obviously at level 7 and especially at 9, once he's got better cooldowns on the Qs and the passive, then he's able to fight back more and get more healing effects. Now, that said, Thornmail is definitely on the menu here for K'Sante, right? Going to have a lot of value in this game. Going Bramble Vest early for the laning phase might have a ton of effect, and Thornmail will be very nice. Will be negating the damage from 3 different champions on top of being a hard counter for Aatrox, also affecting Sylas. So it's kind of a ubiquitous item that's able to do a lot for him there. Oscarini making a mistake there, letting go of W a little bit too early. Means that he does get the snapback. He's taking these resources, but look, he's got 3 biscuits, right? He's super, super happy to take this situation. He knows that there's no threat from Poppy. See these line of wards there? There's no way for Poppy to get around. Poppy would have to take like this fantastic voyage, flash over this wall with Hex Flash to make any sort of impact. Now, that is available, right? That is something we should talk about. And if you're looking at, as a coaching staff, you're talking about, hey, look, this was his strategy to let the wave come in, push, proxy, and come back here and try to freeze the wave against just a Doran shield. Well, the way to exploit that is to take your Poppy, bring him all the way around, especially if these are the wards, and then you Hex Flash over this wall, you knock K'Sante back into the Aatrox. Predictable landing spot should mean that you always hit a Q off of it. You just have to be very careful that K'Sante is not able to all out in response. So we'll see whether or not they get something like that, whether or not that play pattern comes up in other situations as well. The edge of the range goes right there, walks right into the Sejuani ultimate. Congratulations, you found the Hun army. And Razork just taking this game over. We said that Wei had kind of a lot to prove, a little bit that he's been leaving on the table, and that TheShy has been hard carrying this team. We'll see whether or not this continues, but definitely Fnatic having a huge advantage for game 1. 1.5k already in hand. They've got the plate as well. Now, K'Sante, this lane has managed to go to a stage where Aatrox was not punished enough. He's only down the 8 CS. Manaless champion means that it has that like infinite resource, plus he's healing up using the passive and everything. He's just slowly and steadily coming back up, realizing like, hey, I can manage this. And if you're an Aatrox player, this is the guy to watch. You have to find out, how did he do this? How is he doing this game after game after game when we've seen Oscarini counterpick Aatrox with K'Sante and snowball off of the level 4-5 window? What is TheShy doing that's different? Nice little step back by Sejuani a little bit later before you get hit by the sweeping lens. Means that you can point blank them a little bit closer to your team. Makes it a little bit easier for your team to get the follow-up. Very nicely done. All right, now Sejuani feeling huge. We see an early Bomby Cinder going to help with the clear speed. Then you go into Radiant Virtue. This is by far my preferred path for this champion. Always get that Bomby Cinder. It makes such a big difference on your ability to actually get this. Now, Sejuani being knocked out means that we're going to have smite advantage here from Poppy. We're showing why, one of the reasons why Poppy is so heavily contested in drafts. Counterpick to many champions kind of nullifies some subsets of champions that you might be able to pick, but also just so dominant around pits. That will be a big story as to what happens, right? Zeri, super in the pits. Renata has the best ultimate in the game for the pits. Poppy can knock people out. So yes, it's a low range composition, and maybe they're just going to get kited around. But if they can force the fights around the pit, the fact that Aatrox might be found jumping over a wall, they might get a lot of synergy around the pit. Now, there is some dis-synergy between these two, so you have to be careful that you're not popping people up while the Berserk is going off. But certainly you can Berserk into like a 3 or 4 man ultimate, deal your damage up front, and then have Poppy just blow them out of the water, go and take whatever you're going for. So it's going to be interesting to see how Fnatic navigates these pits. Normally around 2,700 down to 2,400 is when you're looking at those pits and saying, okay, this is the window. As the buff is passing from this down to here, that's where the engages start, the sort of like, you know, snap count, if you will, of when to move forward. We'll see whether or not they decide to change that based on the fact that they have two champions that are just insane around the pit in that spot. Now, we haven't really spoken about Noah. Noah, having started with Call, having a very nice time, 2 kills for himself because of that skirmish in the river. He's going to be a huge problem. We'll see whether or not he goes Guardian Angel. Hopefully not. We talk about it all the time in this Aphelios versus Zeri matchup, that if you go Guardian Angel, if you're not dealing more damage than the other carry, then they are going to outscale you. They will win the fights. But is it going to matter with this game? You know, Aphelios has that extra lead. They've got 2K, almost 2K in the bank right now. And once they cash in this call, they're going to be looking at a completed item here from Aphelios. You know, maybe even first mythic in the game. Here we go, all out. All right. Still no aggro being taken by Aatrox, so he's not taking anything. Even though you've locked him up for that long, my goodness, what a champion. That was 6 seconds of being juggled around, feeling all he did was one right click back in this direction. And every time that he gets moved, he's like, I'm not clicking anything else. I'm just going to continue moving out here. I'm not going to risk touching you. I don't want anything to do with you as we go for this fight. But the chain CC and eventually the all out, it's not enough to get that kill. But those guys are going to be sitting close on the mythic upgrades. All right, we see Poppy knocking Sejuani out. This is not what you want, right? This is a little bit too early. Now, it is a really good position for the Renata ultimate, but it means Sejuani's going to get back in, uses the stun. They're actually going to go for the fight onto Weiwei. Use the pressure of the fight to get him to panic smite, means that Razork is able to get it for himself. And once again, they get the advantage. They get the dragon. They walk away unscathed. Noah is a huge threat. He's going to push this wave in and surely go back and pick up his Kraken Slayer. Casante's finished the Iceborne Gauntlet. However, Aatrox has finished Gore Drinker and has Boots advantage. So this is going to be a very big source of a lead. I really like what Casante did to generate that extra weave. I wonder what would have happened if he had picked up Bramble Vest for himself instead of Sheen. It's not uncommon to use that as a first item against Aatrox. He obviously never needs to attack you, but it means that you get to walk up and attack him as much as you want. And every time that he tries to get his passive healing on you, it'll always be mitigated. And we'll see whether or not we end up with any sort of adaptation like that. All right, Everfrost is ready. Gore Drinker is done. Kraken Slayer plus Boots. So we have a big lead here from the Aphelios. We'll see if we get any sort of rotations to work around with. No, it looks like Aphelios is going straight back to bot lane. Notice how Melio paths back into the jungle. All right, he's coming here to make sure that he's got coverage on both sides to see wherever there's a play. Casante being left weak side. These two guys having the game of their life, where it's like, all right, no one's going to the top lane. It is just us. Humanoid, shout out, dodging everything. Chunking the damage back to Xiaohu. The longer that your attacks are stacking, by the way, as Orianna, that passive can start really hurting if you get into those long fights. But Humanoid able to dodge everything means he gets away unscathed from the Poppy. Poppy was not able to spear them into the wall. But yeah, like I was saying, this top lane, like they are being left alone to duke it out, right? Obviously, Aatrox is going to feel great. And the fact that Oscarini's willing to go against Aatrox, TheShy on Aatrox, of all people, on all champions, that is a pretty tall task. So he says, I ain't scared. I can handle it. No more biscuits, of course, means he won't have that. Sejuani did go magical footwear. The Bami Cinder gave her enough of a head start on the farm, so now she has Radiant Virtue. This is what we've seen every time into the Poppy, right? Saying, all right, you know, people react, be aware of what kind of path she might take to find a gank. And as long as you can play around that, and Humanoid has done twice already, As long as you can play around that, this champion has much lower effect, especially if you don't have someone like Azir or Jarvan to slam a wall against, right? You have to be kind of picky with the sort of champions that you're willing to do it. Wouldn't mind. I mean, we're never going to see a champion as different as Anivia, but Anivia is a super high value champion for this as well, and probably would have fit this team comp so much better, right? The ability to clear any wave, the fact that your team is outranged, so having another ranged champion that can deal with sieges single-handedly and say, hey, no, you have to go somewhere else. You have to go to our Aatrox if you want to push, right? And the ability to put up a big wall for Poppy to slam against. And you might even be able to get a big ult going off during a Renata. So, you know, there are options like that. There's always other champions. These teams do tend to get caught up with the top 30 or so champions, and it becomes very redundant, especially as we heard from Freak. Like, this is a prescribed meta. They chose the numbers. They said, we want 70% presence of engaged supports. We want a low percentage of carry junglers. We want 10% tanks, 70% fighters in the top lane. You know, they really went for targeted metrics, and that's what they balanced the patches to. And honestly, I think that's bullshit. You know, put it in the comments. Timestamp 1537, or you can do hashtag Riot, please. Give us a balanced game, right? Please give us a balanced game. Make it balanced. Make there be an ebb and flow to metagame. Choices where you have to decide whether or not to throw rock or papers or scissors. I don't want to have a tournament where throwing rock is just best, and that even when you throw paper in response to my rock, it's not even good enough. All right, Humanoid will bite the dust. Does move them over into the alcove. This is what we talked about last game. If you're going to die over here. All right, move them into the alcove, get them as far off the map as possible, because then you buy 5 seconds while they're chasing you, 5 seconds more for them to get back on the map. They're actually not going to be in the most relevant corner of the, or they're in the least relevant corner of the map. If you move them over there, it allows your team to buy some time and make progress elsewhere, right? Specifically the opposite quadrant of the enemies. In this case, Silas stays around. Poppy's a little bit later to rotate, decides to hover for a bit to make sure that they have the Eye of the Herald, or the Herald itself, pushing in. And it means that they're a little bit late, and they end up trading. Even though Orianna died, they trade turret for turret, and in fact, it's mid for bottom, so that's a trade that you take all day long if you're Fnatic. So despite Orianna dying, Fnatic got more out of the death, right? And that's something that you can be very keen to, especially at this level with all of the benefit. Oh, look at that, the throwback, the handshake, making sure that Cassante was unable to peel and grab Zeri. Looked like he almost got to it, but ends up biting the dust, paying the penalty for it. But yeah, every death, every motion you make has a direct consequence, and macro is a matter of seconds, right? It's always going to come down to seconds. Here they go. They say, we can't fight you in the river, but we can go punish Aatrox. What is he doing stepping up that far? That's a big mistake. Now, there has been a little bit of signs of hubris from TheShy at times. Now, he's had the game to back it up. That's not something that you want to be doing, especially once you get to the final stages of the tournament where you're not going to just be able to player diff. Here we go. We're under 3,000. This is where we're talking about whether or not we're going to get the ultimate. Sejuani outsmiting again. Razork just having the window there. They say, all right, we're going to use the window where you're focused on the dragon. We're going to go after Milio. Big splash damage, chases away 3, which means Zeri gets isolated. That's got to be a big mistake. Weebo wants that one back. Now Sejuani is walling them off, buying some time, does not want to get hit. Might even just be calling off the play entirely, saying, hey, the best way through this would be for them to just fight into me. Orianna did not have her ultimate up, by the way. So that is the tiebreaker there. Whether or not you think that you might be able to pinch them, Orianna would need to survive another 15 seconds, or Sejuani would have to survive 15 seconds, which is a bit of a tall task. Right, asking to hold out that long would have been very, very difficult. All right, we're going into, well, we're firmly into the mid game. Mid turret being down. We're going to see a little replay. Look at the positioning right here. Oscarine trying to get that Q flash, reposition to try to knock Light to the side. Light uses his own to get to the side, gets to safety. Oh man, cinematics, LEC quality. Boom, 3 people get knocked out. As a continuation, that means Cassante suddenly finds himself very, very lonely. Big pop there on Milio. Milio not able to get the cleanse off. I believe he still had it, right? That's just an Everfrost. He had a window to actually get that cast off. Milio being by far best into AoE roots, right? Anytime it's roots where you can still cast that spell, stuns and knockups can be a little bit more difficult. If the entire enemy team is stunned, you can actually go with cleanse. Use your own cleanse to become a cleanse for your team. But if it's all knockups, then you can't really do that, right? In most of this, Q1, 2, 3, we've got Poppy E, Poppy R. Very few things to actually get around. So Milio's going to try to position themselves a little bit further back in the fights next time, I'm sure. Being a campfire buff bot for the Aphelios, and then being a cleanse versus the Berserk. Oh, that must have been what happened, right? Must have been a Milio ult in response to the Berserk. All right, lines of wards being drawn. We see an X right here, 5 different wards plus the minion wave to be pushed up. But Zeri's actually ceding pressure here, steps back, allows Aphelios to get first push. Cassante is going to be very late to this wave. There's not much effect to be had, so this is a window where Weibo might be able to find an opening. Sejuani is in a very difficult spot, but has 2 items, so she's going to feel very, very comfortable here. Actually, going into TheShy, you might not actually want this. He's going to be so tanky for so long, and he's got 2 people to buff bottom. We don't know whether or not he has something like Font of Life or Shield Bash. Sometimes we see those Shield Bashes online when you have multiple shields. 3 people on your team can get it. So absolutely the people who are looking to get shielded, especially Cassante, should be running it. They do get the pick into TheShy, though. They get that prize. He's not at Steric's gauge yet, so he's not going to be able to survive those initial bursts. Fnatic not wasting any time. They're going into the pit, but this is meant to pull aggro, right? This is meant to pull them over. You're just drawing attention for a little bit. You're delaying their backs, trying to get yourself a better lane state. It looks like they want to recall for themselves. I'm sure that Sejuani wants to get upgraded boots. Nope, just Crystal. This is blind, by the way, that jump. TheShy saying, all right, I've got enough right here, but Razor, hey, look at those multiple shields on me. I'm just feeling so jelked right now. They get that upfront damage, just kill them with no response. Or was that Orianna ultimate over the wall? Oscarini, welcome. Willing to tank up there. They actually could have taken more. If they weren't going to go for Baron, they could have taken that turret for sure. They end up resetting. Not that much of a loss. TheShy dying, obviously, he wants to get all the experience on the map. It means he has some time where he's off the map. No good. Interesting play by Fnatic saying, all right, you know, we talk about this game theory optimal 60, 30, 10, right? You want to have a plan that's good, a plan that's good against that, and a second plan. Normally, you'd say, all right, we're winning. We'd like to play for this Baron. But instead, right, enemy team has spent all their resources to put shallow wards over. By making a fast, concise play in bot lane, they're actually able to get this for themselves. Now, obviously, that could have been punished if Weibo had vision of it, which they had none of, right? This entire area is dark for them. If they had seen the rotation, the correct answer would have been to come get Baron. But because Fnatic was very certain that 6 wards were used over here, littering this area, they knew that there was necessarily no vision in the Eastern Quadrant. So I very much like that play. That is something that can be exploited, though, so advanced scouts should definitely be looking for that. But also the fact that they made this play for this turret also has some ancillary benefits, right? The fact that they pathed through here means that they have some lingering wards as we prepare for the dragon. They have the 1.5k gold lead. Xiaohu also chunked. Aphelios flashing forward to go get that kill. Sejuani's going to peel everybody. This is a huge win for them. Noah going to get a big ultimate off, but no, it doesn't quite hit everybody. Look how forward he's playing. He's got that huge shield. I wonder, and honestly, you can consider Shield Bash as a carry with Fleet Footwork, with Overheal, the fact that you've got red guns for yourself, the fact that you're going to go Bloodthirster as your 3rd item anyways, and your team has multiple shields that they can cast on you, can make you very, very hard to kill and very willing to go press up. So Fnatic takes that advantage, the kill on Xiaohu, the chunk damage on everybody else. They get the soul for themselves. Chemtech means that they're going to be very good at low health, which is very nice into a flank comp. So even if Sylas and Aatrox try to get the jump on you, there's a much better chance that you'll just survive with that little bit of health and be able to fight on. Everfrost knockout. Look at where Noah's going, right? This is with no other vision. Just seeing that someone else is seeing people here, knowing that they saw Aatrox on the other side, knowing that they would be that strong, playing like a god, realizing that he's got 1,000 value worth of shields, plus the extra resistances. I'm going to assume that he has Shield Bash. Like, if I'm being honest, I'll have to go back and check for things like biscuits or whatnot, but Didn't see it in the beginning screen. Certainly available to them. Now, 2K gold lead for 4 dragons. They have to be very careful that they don't give a window where this just becomes a coin flip, right? We've said it many times. This is a fake buff. It doesn't do that much for your actual chances of winning the game. You just tend to get soul when you're ahead, but you need to continue to perform acts that make you a success if you want to continue to be a success in this game, right? Every moment that you spend, if you take any false steps backwards, then enemy team might be able to react. All right, they're going for the Shy again, a nice little ultimate going forward. Weiwei being sucked in by the shockwave. Now Aatrox feeling really good. Everyone sidesteps here. Don't even need to use the Milio ultimate, which means Casante's feeling really good stepping forward. Poppy's actually isolated. Humanoid cannot be punched against the wall, so that's going to be an easy kill. Oscarini just shielding 3 people here. Does he realize how far he is? He does. He brings the Shy over to the rest of his team while also positioning himself in a more favorable spot. Beautifully done by Casante there. That is such good awareness, and actually might have the inside track here, but that's a Zeri. You got to be careful. And plus, if Zeri gets that 1 kill, you got to be really scared about what might come out, especially with lethal tempo. So they end up peeling back. 2 dead. Silas not even going to contest. They actually had a window. They could maybe go for this. Silas having ultimate available. Didn't see whose was there, but enough people with high health bars, and we see that it's definitely at least overshield there based on the size of that shield that we see. Good little formation. We do have a ward advantage. You absolutely want to get a ward in this bush as you're fighting. You saw for a moment that they started losing because they all stepped out of the bush, and in that moment, Weibo was able to deal one-sided damage. Don't like that Weiwei's actually moving up while his team's moving right. I would have liked him to reposition this way and try to create momentum over either like this pathway or this one. Instead gets isolated, means he gets picked apart. Now Light is having a very tough time getting back into this fight. There is a little bit of jockeying back and forth happening right here. There's plenty of shields, although they might be on cooldown, but you have to be careful about Zeri in those situations, as always. I'm gonna look up the patch history real quick on Zeri, what they did to the shield. They had to touch up so much of what this champion does. You guys will get a chance to see the ending strategy here with Baron, how they're going to put 1 in mid lane, 4 in top lane. They're going to try to get themselves ward lines. Now, they haven't actually done that. You see that there's actually a lot of defensive wards in between here. This will allow for a wedged style of defense where you can try to wedge in between them, but they're not actually doing it. They're going front to back, which means they're just going to bleed out this turret. This is a mistake or a missed opportunity by Weibo. You absolutely want to muscle your way in. You've got these 2 control wards. You want to go in and flank and force a 5v4. Force them to come on over rather than get bled out, because once these inhibitors start falling, then you are checkmated. Casante saying, I'm strong enough. And we're going to wonder whether or not the Shy is going to feel strong enough to go on to Aatrox anymore, because Oscarinian played a fantastic game on Casante. Instant cleanse there by Noah, basically only giving 0 auto attacks in the Berserk timing, which means that he just rampages through this fight. Sejuani's going to mark the Silas. Silas is going to do his best to cut the wave, but it's not going to be enough because those are Baron empowered minions, and you have a Casante that's just tanking up for the team so that you can get in. Very important ending strategy. And they get a nice clean finish. Razork just so far ahead that he actually just wins that fight by himself.